In Arthurian legend, there is a powerful goddess known as Morgan le Fay, the first of 9 sisters who rule the Fortunate Isle, also known as the Isle of Apples. Most tales declare Morgan and King Arthur are half-siblings, though the details often differ. Like most legends, Morgan goes through changes in appearance and perspective throughout the ages. In early descriptions of her, she was a shape-shifting saint, aligned with the sea and used her powers for good. She acted as a governor of the waves of the Great Sea, and it is also said that she taught astronomy to her fellow nymph sisters. In the 13th century, she seemed to represent a dark force with ambitions to overtake Arthur's throne and manipulate men through her schemes. She becomes an antagonist with dark powers, such as flying, raising the dead, turning men into animals, and controlling monsters, such as dragons. Morgan's magical arts correspond with that of her preceptor, Merlin, including shape-shifting, casting illusions, and utilizing sleeping spells. Merlin was the principal teacher of her magical abilities, and he was a significant influence on her life for a time, with some legends even casting him as being infatuated with her. In the 15th century, she was given the epithet of Le Fay. The name is derived from a supernatural woman in Celtic mythology, the word fay meaning fairy. She was considered a water spirit, deemed in some legends as the fairy queen. In Orlando in Amortio, Morgana is a beautiful but wicked fairy enchantress, a sister of King Arthur and a pupil of Merlin. Morgana lives in a paradise-like garden in a crystal cavern underneath a lake, plotting to eventually destroy the entire world. In the 19th century, Morgan was tainted by Christian bias and portrayed as an evil seductress. She used her magic and powers to get what she wanted and destroyed those who opposed her, using shape-shifting and magical capabilities of controlling monsters. It is said that Morgan concentrated on witchcraft to such a degree that she went to live in seclusion of the faraway forest. She learned an abundance of spells, gains the ability to transform herself, and people begin to start calling her Morgan the Goddess. In the 21st century, most incarnations of Morgan le Fay see her as a clever villain in the story, bent on overthrowing Arthur, who represents the current system of order. She will stop at nothing to achieve her goal of evoking change. Other Renaissance works feature continuations of her evolutionary tale from the aftermath of her victory as she becomes the next immortal queen of Avalon. The island kingdom of Avalon is often described as an otherworldly place ruled by Morgan and is said to be hidden by a great mist. Ranni the Witch is a demigoddess in the lands between. Ranni is the last princess of the Carian royal family, which are descendants from the ancient astrologers, originating from the mountaintops of the giants. She resides at Three Sisters, located within Lernia the Lakes. Lernia is described as having shallow waters and vast wetlands. The region is beset with a gradual sinking of most of its landmass, becoming one with the sea. Its forests are perpetually blanketed in a fog, similar to the fog that protects Avalon. As an Empyrean, Ranni is a candidate to succeed Queen Marika, to become the new god of a coming age. In Morgan's mythos, she serves as a lady-in-waiting for the High Queen as well, Arthur's wife, Guinevere. When they were younger, Morgan had an affair that Guinevere witnessed and broke ties with Morgan to avoid losing her own grace. After this incident, Morgan begins scheming for vengeance as she tries to achieve Guinevere's downfall. Ranni, like Morgan, shares great animosity for her queen. Ranni is the child of Marika and Radagon, but is given as a baby to Renalia from Radagon to provide her with love as a replacement for his abandonment. Being raised by her foster mother, she later learned about how Radagon's mistreatment caused her mother's breakdown, which he did for the greater will and for Marika. Ranni seems clever enough. I suspect at some point she became aware that she was a true daughter of Marika. She knows information about the other Empyreans, and could deduce that all of them were born from Marika and Radagon, one true god. Ranni's purpose becomes getting revenge for her mother by plotting to replace the greater will and Marika with an outer god that her foster mother praised, the Dark Moon. To enact this plot, she utilizes the services of her subjects. You could argue that she manipulates her subjects, which are all male, similar to how Morgan is depicted in the 13th century. Speaking of her subjects, there is a half-wolf, half-man named Blide, who acts as Ranni's shadow. Remember, Morgan had the ability to turn men into animals. Blide is on a quest to find the Finger Slayer blade, which reflects the quest to find the Holy Grail, another Arthurian legend connected to Morgan. In both instances, the item that they are questing for defies the natural order of the world that they reside in. The Finger Slayer blade is used to sever Ranni's tie to the greater will, the outer god that rules the lands between, while the Holy Grail grants the user eternal life, defying the natural life and death process. Then there is also Seluvis, who is titled as a great preceptor in the sorceress arts. preceptor meaning teacher or instructor. Celiavis mirrors Merlin as somebody who taught magical abilities as well as had a keen personal interest in their students. He mentions that Ranni is a frail, gentle girl at heart, showing that he's known her for quite some time. He seems to be interested in not only the power that she would bring him as a puppet, but it's implied that he's using his puppets for nefarious means. He mentions that he aspires to cherish her as a puppet with his own very hands. Then we have Iji, the war counselor, who is a troll that had earned respect from the Carian royalty as their smith and found his place serving Ranni. As we mentioned, Morgan controlled various species under her rule, which leads us to Adula, a large dragon and devourer of sorcerers. After being bested by Ranni, it subsequently swore a knightly oath to her dark moon, her outer god. Finally, we have the Tarnished, who if they decide to assist in Ranni's plot, will become her consort to allow the new Age of Stars. Near the end of Ranni's quest, you will place the dark moon ring on Ranni's finger. She vanishes, leaving behind an item, a sign of betrothment, the Dark Moon Greatsword. The Dark Moon Greatsword in the Lands Between is a legendary armament bestowed by a Carian queen upon her spouse to honor a long-standing tradition. It mentions in its item description that it shines brightly with but a beam of Ranni's full moon sigil, representing her chosen family heritage. As Ranni is connected to the Dark Moon Greatsword, Morgan is connected to Excalibur in many of her tales. Excalibur in Arthurian legend is King Arthur's sword. It is a royal sword of peace, meant for ceremonies. Within some legends, the sword was given to Arthur by a lady of the lake. Excalibur's blade shines so bright that it can blind its enemies, a brightness similar to that of the greatsword we just mentioned. In one tale, Morgan gives Excalibur to her lover so that he can use it against King Arthur, and when that plot fails, she steals the scabbard of Excalibur, which protects Arthur, and throws it into a lake. Like Morgan's relationship with her half-brother Arthur, Ranni plots the death of her own half-brother, Star Scourge Radahn, to further her own goals and to achieve her decided fate. Today we have learned that Morgan and Ranni share many commonalities, including both residing in mist-covered kingdoms under the protection of their dragons, both plotting the downfall of their relatives, and both using magical abilities, such as transformation, sleeping spells, and flight to achieve their overarching goal of tipping the current status quo in their favor. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend learning about this Arthurian inspiration for Elden Ring, and I hope you have a wonderful day.